Good morning, everybody out there. I realize it's really hard. First, you can't see my mouth, which is hilarious as far as I'm concerned. And it's really hard to drink my tea, so hold on a second. Looks like I'm doing stuff up my nose here. Happy Monday. It was an interesting morning for me. Let me make sure I do all the things. I have to do some things here to make sure things are working. Let's see here. Share now. All right. Put that there. Bah ha 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 ha. Thanks, Kate. Yes, today we are talking about imposter syndrome. But before we go on to talk about imposter syndrome, welcome back to Write With Me, day 21. Woo! We've been doing this for 21 days, barring weekends, because I have a life and it's an intense one. We're doing this every day this week. So even for Thanksgiving, 9 a.m. on Thanksgiving, I will be here. 9 a.m. on Friday, Billy and I will be back for the last Billy guest, at least for this particular month. And so today was weird. I'm just going to say because I'm a little bit, I wound up staying the night at my boyfriend's house, which I don't usually do for these things because I have a little studio set up at home. And it was super fun. We wound up fixing up. He has this big loft space. But I'm a city girl, and he lives in the country, and I have to figure out the internet stuff over there in terms of the streaming, or he has to figure that out, so that hopefully I can do some guest spots from over there. And I got stuck in traffic, and it was raining, and my 20-minute drive became like a 45, almost 50-minute drive. And, being stuck in traffic can be fun because I started to prepare for the show and I started to, while I was stuck in actual standstill, looking up different TED Talks and stuff like that about this thing called imposter syndrome. So before we get started, can everybody hear me, see me, any troubles? I don't think so. It looks like I'm getting, things are working on all my signals here. And there will be profanity, so I want everybody to know there will be profanity. We're gonna talk about imposter syndrome. I love these. I actually wore them on and off during the weekend when I was driving, or when a friend of mine was sad, and I wound up going, "Oh, wow, okay, let me get my glasses," and I put this on, and pretty much you can't get sad. Or you can't be sad when you're wearing this thing with the nose. The nose is my favorite part. But I'll talk about what this means in terms of imposter syndrome. It's actually used, I found out here and there. My name, just so you know, is Dawn Z. Monofusco, and I am a memoir writing coach. And I usually work with men and women over 40 who want to tell their true story, use that story to get published, use that story to grow their business, use that story to really connect with why they're here on Earth, and how to share their stories to inspire others and leave a legacy. And memoir is not autobiography. So you can have many memoirs. Memoir is memory. Memoir is a snippet of life. So you can tell a memoir about traveling and hiking and through the Himalayas. You can do another memoir about being a chef. You can do a memoir, same person. You can do a memoir about growing up in Italy. I mean, there's many parts of our lives that become rich with story and lessons. And when we share our stories, we actually help the world. So that's what I love to do. And I'm hoping that something, my brain, just like that. I'm hoping that, for National Novel Writers Month, NaNoWriMo, instead of writing novels, I'm encouraging people to write their memoirs, to write true stories this month and write every day. Now, the reason we write every day and the reason I'm doing this, someone asked me this weekend, it really wasn't because I had planned it out at all. I saw Molly Mahoney, who's an amazing Facebook Live coach. She was speaking at a luncheon, and I watched her do her thing, and we connected, and I thought, wow, this could be really fun. Why not do it? I mean, I actually feel that Facebook Live is less stressful than recording video, which some people think is different. They like it the other way. And the reason is because it's a lot more forgiving. Facebook Live is forgiving because it's live, and you almost are forced to be yourself, which is the whole point, right? So I did it as a challenge so I could get out of my comfort zone, get up in the morning, because as an entrepreneur who works from home, sometimes my schedule can get a little too lazy, and I need a push to make sure that I stay on my game. And I wanted to encourage not just myself for writing every day, but I do help my clients do that. And it's always so amazing to watch the transformations that happen when people are living into their dreams, especially as writers, and they're writing every day, and they're like, wow, I am a writer. Which brings us to dun, 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 the Imposter Syndrome. Why wouldn't you be a writer if you're writing? There's a great line in the book by Greg Lavoie. It's called Callings by Greg Lavoie. And in it, he has a little story about a professor in college. And this particular professor taught drawing. And his little 6-year-old, I may have told you about this story. There's another story about this with a writer. But little 6-year-old says, Daddy, what do you do at work? And he says, oh, I teach people how to draw. And the little girl goes, wow, do they forget? And that's kind of the plight of the artist, you know. A child does not have any problems saying that they're an artist or that they're creative or, look, I'm writing, I'm a writer. But as we get older, we start to think that, especially artists and writers, man, we critique ourselves internally. You remember Tanya. I remember Tanya. Tanya hangs out with me. Tanya is the internal critic. We are so critical of ourselves as artists and writers, I think more than anything else. I think artists and writers just get the shaft when it comes to being able to say you're a writer. Let's just stick there. How many of you have been somewhere where someone says, oh, you're a writer? What do you write? It's the worst question ever. Because you might write lots of different things. And there's stuff that you love to write. There's stuff that you might get paid to write. There might be stuff that you're planning to write. You may have written a lot in your past and you took a break. And people that are not writers, and specifically artistic writers, people who are doing it because it's a passion, sometimes they don't understand. I've had someone say to me, oh, why don't you write that grant? You're a writer. Why don't you write that resume for so-and-so? They'll pay you. You're a writer. And it's kind of really funny because, you know, an engineer doesn't get that particular, you know, trouble. You know, an engineer that helps build elevators, you know, really fancy schmancy elevators, the person doesn't walk over to them and say, oh, hey, you're an engineer. Go build me a robot, you know, or go fix the plane or whatever. Like other professions, when you do something, they know that usually it's a specialty. And as a writer, I guess when people say, what do you write? And you say things like poetry or I'm working on a book, usually then they say, oh, are you published? Are you a paid writer? And there's all this like tension, I swear, it's ridiculous, about whether or not you're a writer. And it took me a long time. I was a writer for a while, then I went to grad school, and then I wasn't a writer because, man, do they mess you up in grad school. For everybody going to graduate school for writing, I hope that your plan is to teach, because if your plan is not to teach writing, just write. You don't need to go to school to write. You can take workshops, you can learn online little tricks, but if you're a writer, write. That's what makes you a writer. Now, imposter syndrome. Let me move on. I'm going to show you a couple of definitions, and we're going to talk about what that is, because you'll probably recognize imposter syndrome in other areas of your life, and this is really important. Ooh, oh, Jacqueline Rose is on. Yay! I feel your speaking live get better and better. Thanks, particularly today. I hear your voice much more confident and embodied. So whatever you did this weekend is working. Okay, this comes from my perception as a voice coach. Oh, cool. But really what I wanted to say is that I enjoy you showing up and I appreciate your contribution. Thank you so much. Oh, Deb said got locked up. She's coming back. And Kate said, yes, just go for it and figure it out along the way. I love how human and real you are. Helps me feel you are like me, and so I can do this writing thing too. Thanks. Wow. Happy Monday. Jacqueline Rose, thank you. You know what it is? I thought about this today. I literally had seconds to get online. Like my hair, just stuck it back in a ponytail, threw some makeup on, but literally jumped out of the car in the rain, set up. But I was thinking about it in the car, and I was like, wow, I've been doing this now for 21 days. Truly, I would say the difference that made the difference in today, and hopefully for the days to come, is that I'm getting used to it. Is that, I'm sleeping and thinking about it. I walk through my days and think about it. It's no longer scary. I'm not getting a stomach ache. I feel very comfortable about it. I feel connected to the world. So there's something changing in that daily coming back to the table, coming back to the table, coming back to the table. And this is why I want to emphasize it works for everything that you're uncomfortable with, but for writers, because we struggle with sitting down and coming back to the table, that it's just a matter of getting comfortable with it. And then all of a sudden it's not comfortable. It's not uncomfortable anymore. Okay, so here we go. Here are a couple of slides. Oh, let me just share my screen. Do I want to share my screen? Do I want to show you slides? I'll show you the slides. Let's see. New image. Let's show you the definition of, forgive me, here we go. Definition for writing. Okay. So, what is it? Imposter syndrome can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persists even in the face of information that indicates that the opposite is true. I'm going to read it one more time. Imposter syndrome can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist even in face of information that indicates that the opposite is true. So basically, we ignore what's showing up. Are you writing every day? Yes. Are you showing up like a pro in writing every day? Yes. Then you're a writer. And when I wanted to really step into that, I was a teacher at PCC, teaching life coaching and stuff to at-risk youth, and I made a fake business card, and that fake, I wish I probably have it somewhere. I made it with, Avery little business cards that you peel off, and it said Dawn Montefusco, life coach / writer, of which I was neither professionally. And I put it on my mirror, and I stared at it every day. And within a couple years of just taking little action steps, not only did I get certified in life coaching and have my own practice and my own office, practicing with hundreds of people, life coaching, but I realized that I was coaching people and living into their purpose, and by default, I realized, wow, I'm actually a writing coach. I'm actually a real writer. And then I started getting my poems published in lots of literary magazines. Oh, wow, I guess that means I'm a writer. And then I won a big poetry contest in the country in Wordstock, and I was like, oh, that must mean I'm a writer. And then, I meet people and they're like, well, did you get paid to write? And I thought, well, I've written a bunch of bios for people. I do website writing. I guess I must be a writer. And then as time has gone on, I still knock myself down. Oh, well, this book isn't published yet. That book isn't published yet. I must mean I'm not a writer. So going back to that definition, imposter syndrome can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist even in the face of information that indicates that the opposite is true. So there was a lot indicating that I was a writer even without all that stuff, and I still just felt this need to there's somehow I'm not there. Now, you may have known that Maya Angelou, who obviously is a famous, wonderful writer, she once wrote that, or said, that any minute she thought that someone was going to find her out, that she was a fraud. And that's just amazing because that was, books and bestsellers down the road that she thought that she was a fraud. So here, let's look at a couple other of these definitions that I've put together from some memes I found. Here is reasons why. Okay, so not just for writing, but with imposter syndrome, when good things happen, so say you're writing, that's a good thing that happens, you tend to go, I'm not a writer. Oh, I'm just getting lucky, or I just got lucky, I got that one thing published. You don't really acknowledge it. You might say, this is a mistake. Somebody's going to figure out that I'm not a writer. Maybe I'm really not a writer. And then even if you're doing great things and you have books published and everything, you might even think, oh, this is my lucky one. Maybe I'll never write another book. We find ways to hide behind these strange situations. So let's see what else I got here. Here's signs of the imposter syndrome. So now here are signs. And you can see this imposter syndrome in so many places. Self-doubt, sense of incompetence, frequently comparing yourself to others, low self-esteem, fear, anxiety, immobility, right? Writer's block, stress and burnout, underperformance, hard to accept praise and or compliments, or the inability to enjoy your accomplishments. So I wonder, the signs of imposter syndrome do seem like life. It seems like that's being human. We have fear. We have all kinds of stuff that crops up. Anxiety, self-doubt. I think that's called the human condition. So one of the really strange parts about imposter syndrome is that we think everybody else is fine. We think everyone's got their shit together. We think, oh man, so-and-so's got their shit together. I don't want anyone to find out about my life. My life, if they knew, then they would realize that I'm an imposter. They would realize that I'm not perfect. Like, who's perfect? So imposter syndrome is very internal. It's a very internal feeling, like you're walking through life like this as a writer. That everybody's going to see that you're wearing some freaky, mask to hide behind the idea that you're one of them, right? And that someday someone's going to see right through you and see your insecurities. But here's where we get to the fun part. A woman by the name of Lou Solomon, she did a TED Talk on imposter syndrome. You can look her up. Lou Solomon decided that she found a really great trick on how to get rid of imposter syndrome, which I thought was hilarious, because her great trick to get rid of imposter syndrome is not just to name her critic, so not to name that self-doubt, because she named hers, I forget what she named hers. It was, Ms. Vader. She named her inner critic Ms. Vader. So there's that. You can separate the critic, which is the number one cause of the imposter syndrome, is that inner critic. I'm so thirsty. And she also names what she calls her radical hero. And I was driving this morning here and I thought, radical hero. I didn't think of that. I didn't think of naming this other part of me. And then I thought, whoa, I already did that. And my radical hero's name is Zigzag. And that's why I wear my little lightning bolt, to remind me of my superpowers. And I was nicknamed Zigzag about 20 years ago. I think many of you know I'm an introvert that's tenaciously social or tenaciously loquacious. So I zig and I zag. I have my my introvert side and I have my extrovert side, and they're kind of 50-50. So it's not because of the papers, and it's not because of the city. There's a city called Zigzag. It literally was a nickname because of this personality thing. But when I got this nickname, all of a sudden I realized that Dawn was scared. Dawn, has a lot of self-doubt. Dawn has anxiety. Dawn does all kinds of things that really, gets in her way sometimes of reaching her fullest potential. But when Zigzag came in, I remember thinking, well, I'll just have Zigzag do it, because Dawn's a little scared. And I have this radical hero. And Kate says, ooh, it's about perspective, and I need to remember self-compassion, and for me, maybe spin it as I'm becoming instead of I am not a writer. I am not fill in the blank. I love this. Oh my God, radical hero. Ah! So Zigzag for me, in its original, when I was really, I think, using her at her as with her best intention, was to be this radical hero of mine, where I could just step into the Zigzag mind, because you know why? And here's where if you don't like profanity, you should just turn everything off right now, because I'm about to get real. And what Zigzag does that I love is she doesn't give a fuck. And there's a great book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And I gotta say, I followed Mark Manson as a blogger for years, and he wrote this one blog called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And that blog went viral, and then someone asked him to write a self-help book based on it, and it's a bestseller, and it's so awesome. So, and he uses the word fuck like, I don't even know, hundreds of times. But it really is amazing, and I'm going to read you the beginning of the blog, which actually changed my life as the imposter. I could feel the imposter syndrome just kind of disappear. And so here, I'll just jump in right now. So here we go. And by the way, Zigzag's reading this because she doesn't care. Well, she cares. So it's different. Not giving a fuck is different than not caring. Yeah, it's not about indifference. So here's what it means. In my life, I have given a fuck about many people and many things. I have also not given a fuck about many people and many things. And those fucks I have not given have made all the difference. People often say the key to confidence and success in life is simply not give a fuck. Indeed, we often refer to the strongest, most admirable people we know in terms of their lack of fucks given. Like, oh, look at Susie working weekends again. She doesn't give a fuck. Or, did you hear that Tom called the company president an asshole and still got a raise anyway? Holy shit, that dude does not give a fuck. Or, Jason got up and ended his date with Cindy after 20 minutes. He said he wasn't going to listen to her bullshit anymore. Man, that guy does not give a fuck. Chances are you know somebody in your life who, at one time or another, did not give a fuck and went on to accomplish amazing feats. Perhaps there was a time in your life where you simply did not give a fuck and excelled to some extraordinary heights. I know for myself, quitting my day job, this is Mark Manson, quitting my day job in finance after only 6 weeks and telling my boss that I was going to start selling dating advice online ranks pretty high up there in my own didn't give a fuck Hall of Fame. Same with deciding to sell most of my possessions and move to South America. Fucks given? None. Just went and did it. Now, while not giving a fuck may seem simple on the surface, it's a whole new bag of burritos under the hood. I don't even know what that sentence means, but I don't give a fuck. A bag of burritos sounds awesome, so let's just go with it. The point is, most of us struggle through our lives by giving too many fucks in situations where fucks do not deserve to be given. We give a fuck about the rude gas station attendant who gave us too many nickels. We give a fuck when a show we liked was canceled on TV. We give a fuck when our coworkers don't bother asking us about our awesome weekend. We give a fuck when it's raining and we're supposed to go jogging in the morning. Fucks given everywhere, strewn about like seeds in motherfucking springtime. And for what purpose? For what reason? Convenience? Easy comforts? A pat on the fucking back maybe? That is the problem, my friend. Because when we give too many fucks, when we choose to give a fuck about everything, then we feel as though we are perpetually entitled to feel comfortable and happy at all times, and that's when life fucks us. Indeed, the ability to reserve our fucks for only the most fuckworthy of situations would surely make life a hell of a lot easier. Failure would be less terrifying, rejection less painful, unpleasant necessities more pleasant, and the unsavory shit sandwiches a little bit more savory. I mean, if we could only give a few less fucks or a few more consciously directed fucks, then life would pretty much feel pretty fucking easy. What we don't realize is that there is a fine art of not giving a fuck. People aren't just born not giving a fuck. In fact, we're born giving way too many fucks. Actually, the rest of that is hilarious. But I think that is what needs to sort of be like, I want to say like germinated, needs to be simmered, needs to be savored, is this idea that we really can't give that many fucks. Because if we're walking around with imposter syndrome, this is giving a fuck. This is what this looks like. It's scary. It's like, oh God, am I good enough? Am I going to write? You know, Tanya's in there. She's telling me, oh, everything sucks. Why are you doing it? And then my radical hero, Zigzag, comes in, sits down and says, you know what? You're a writer. And you're a damn good writer. And people like reading you. And you've got proof on that. So write your damn book. Write your poetry. Sit down and write every day. And just don't give a fuck about what other people think. That's the whole thing. You just can't give a fuck. So when you're writing that song, or you're writing that poem, or you're starting to write that memoir, or you're writing that true story, I still want you to think of that one person. I've talked about this. That one person who is going to totally need to read it. And there is one person out there. What does he or she look like? What are their age? You know, if you could picture that one person, I have chills right now, that is going to pick up that poem or listen to that song and go, wow, thank you. Thank you for not sitting on it and never showing it to the world. Thank you for singing that song. Thank you for reading that poem and putting it out there. Thank you for writing that short true story or that memoir. Thank you. That just changed my life. That just inspired me. Because there is at least one person. There are thousands of them out there. But all you have to do is focus on the fact that you are writing because your life depends on it and because you love putting pen on paper or tapping away, and that's your calling, and that's your only thing to think about. It doesn't matter if it's good enough, because the more you write, the more you produce, the better the work gets, and the easier it feels to just not give a fuck what people and naysayers are trying to say, because naysayers are usually dealing with their own imposter syndrome, they're dealing with their own fears, and they're projecting on you. So the lesson of the day for imposter syndrome is find your radical hero, name your radical hero. I'm going to name mine Ms. Zigzag because that's who she's been for me for a long time. And I'm going to reinvigorate her because she does actually help me not give a fuck. And remember, that doesn't mean indifference. It doesn't mean not care. It means putting those fucks in the right places. And right now, you don't need to give a fuck about what people think about your writing. Your job is to write every day, and whatever is calling you to just keep going, because it's going to get easier, it's going to get better, it's going to be amazing. And if you're feeling a little weird or you're just feeling down about yourself, you can always get a pair of Groucho Marx glasses and read Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I hope you all have your trusty War of Art next to you whenever you're feeling resistance. So let's see what we got over here. We seem to need outside validation, just as, and this is Janice saying, we seem to need outside validation just as being paid for our writing or lots of praise about our writing. Even if we self-publish but don't sell any copies, it can feel like we are imposters. Yes, but that again is an internal story. It's not true. I mean, it really isn't true. You putting your work out there is amazing. It's more than millions of people will ever do. Imposter syndrome is tricky because Janice, the idea is that you're going to focus on this idea that says, most people need outside validation. I need outside validation. If I just self-publish and put it up there, somehow, and no one buys it, somehow I'm not good enough. Somehow this is sad. This is a sad situation, or however it's defined. It's an amazing situation if you wrote a book and put it out there for people to read. Because I guarantee you, you will get readers. There's no doubt. If you don't get readers, it's probably because you haven't told enough people. You haven't been marketing it and putting it out there. Because one of the things about imposter syndrome is that the fear that the imposter has is to be seen for who or he or she really is. The joke is that the more you put yourself out there, the more you'll realize that, oh my gosh, everybody's feeling awkward. No one can figure this thing out called being human or being a writer, and the more you put yourself out there, the less the imposter or the critic can get a hold of you. The problem is sometimes we just glue onto one thing, one bad review or one hater out there, and the whole world ends. But those are the things you don't need to give a fuck about. As long as you're doing your work and moving forward, there's always going to be naysayers. And the truth is if you don't get a naysayer or someone who just is so like, you're probably not doing your job. The more people that are out there, feeling really being a naysayer, telling you shouldn't be doing something, at least you're out there doing it. Now, I personally think we should not surround ourselves with naysayers. You need to surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up. So anyway, but there's one last overlay one last slide that I wanted to show you. If you experience imposter syndrome, it doesn't mean you aren't writing well. It means you think success is for other people, not for you. So one of the things about success is that everybody has a different definition of success. So it doesn't mean you aren't writing and that you aren't a good writer, but perhaps your definition of success came from somewhere else. It came from a mother or father or society, culture. So part of what I know feels successful to me as a writer is that I'm writing. And then that I'm submitting and putting the work out there. And then it doesn't matter if I don't get published, but the more I put my work out there, the more, I get published. So, and that's mostly for the poetry and the literary magazines kind of things. And the next one would be self-publishing, which I've done, and the next one is getting picked up by a publisher, which is fun. I mean, if it happens, it happens. The truth is you make more money if you self-publish. So it depends on how you define yourself. Do you define yourself on being able to be lucrative with your writing, which is nice, or is it just status? Like a publishing company gives you like status. Because you can self-publish, and we'll get into self-publishing next week, and all those good stuff things. All right, we're about to write. Are we ready? Are we ready to write? I think we are. Let me get my nifty timer. If you have any questions at the end of this about imposter syndrome, remember, radical hero just totally knocks the critic out of the way. So when your critic is talking, get your radical hero out and have your radical hero deal with the critic and just move forward, because you got this. You really do. Okay, let's do this. 30 minutes, we write, and I'll be back in 30 minutes. We have 13 minutes left. So about halfway done, a little over halfway. There we go. Ta-da! 30 minutes up. I got a lot done. I'm actually surprised. Always surprised. This time, one of the things that I did is I wouldn't allow I really didn't allow myself to stop. If I got stuck, but basically what I was doing is I have the whole hero's journey that we did last week. I have mapped my own version of it, of how to apply that specifically to memoir and true story, based on having read lots of books on it, with screenplay, with writing, with story. And I kind of like my version. I've had some people tell me about it. So I decided to add that in more depth, that part into the chapter of my book. And was kind of surprised at what came out and all these, it's just always amazing. The writing process is fascinating to me, especially when we think we're too tired to write, or, I'll just write a little bit, and then boom, you write for a half hour a day. It's amazing how much can get done. And if you can't do a half hour, 15 minutes a day makes a huge difference with writing. All right, everybody, it is 10:08, and I'm wondering how you're doing. Please feel free to comment below. I'll come back and check the comments. And I will also put below the video Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I'll put some of those memes that I put up about the definition of imposter syndrome. And remember who your radical hero is. Remember the name of your radical hero, and use that radical hero to squash that inner critic. So I hope you're naming both of them. I hope you're having fun with the process. And we will be here, I will be here, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So even with the chicken situation, I don't think I'm going to do the cooking with Dawn writing morning thing yet. I haven't decided. But I will be here. And I hope you will all have a wonderful Monday, and I will talk to you soon. Okay? Don't forget to write, because it matters. That's true. And don't forget to write every day. No matter what time of day you're writing, do it every day. It gets a lot easier and a lot more fun. And I will see you on the flip side tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bye.